All right, you are ready to go.
All right, you want me to ask the first question, Tora, or let
You'll
her
be.
introduce herself, or what?
We'll start with introductions, then you'll be asking the questions.
Sure.
Am I introducing myself or are you introducing yourselves first?
I guess we'll go first. So I'm James, the Director of Operations for the Democratic Youth Coalition, and we're here tonight hosting a fireside chat with Kara Pitek.
And I'm Tora. I am a senior advisor for the Democratic Youth Coalition. And Kara, thanks for joining us, and we'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself before we get into the Q&A.
Well, thanks again for having me this evening. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Kara Pitek, and I'm a candidate for delegate in the 31st House District. I am a project manager with a small business contractor, and I have over a decade of experience in the federal procurement field, half of which is in writing acquisition policy and performing contract audits. I have been a steward of our taxpayer dollars for federal, state, and local governments throughout my career, and I will bring that same oversight focus to Richmond to ensure that our government is functioning as efficiently and effectively as possible. I currently serve as a board member on the Prince William Housing Board, the Community Outreach Director for Nova Family First, connecting local families through community service projects, the Treasurer for Casa Brumar Foundation, advocating for and providing resources to LGBT youth, and I've served in a variety of leadership roles within the Democratic Party. I am Jewish and was raised with a sense of fairness, justice, and knowing the importance of helping to right the wrongs I saw in the world. And throughout my childhood and young adulthood, I became very invested in the concept of tikkun olam, healing the world. I'm a proud product of public schools from kindergarten all the way through graduate school, and I believe in our public school system. And I believe, especially in these difficult times, that we should be supporting our teachers, administrators, bus drivers, and custodial and cafeteria staff. I think that we need to take a serious look at criminal justice reforms, from concentrated bias training to cash bail reforms and everything in between. The criminal justice system needs a serious top to bottom overhaul. We need to establish an independent entity to investigate police misconduct and put a complete end to qualified immunity. We must implement policies that allow for automatic restoration of voting rights upon completion of a prison sentence. Our friends in Maryland recently enacted landmark police overhaul, and they are the first state to repeal the Police Bill of Rights, and Virginia should be working to do the same. We must implement paid sick and family leave policies for anyone living or working in the Commonwealth, because no one should ever have to worry about having to choose between the paycheck or job security or caring for a loved one. As delegate, I will fight for all of the issues that affect our day-to-day lives: a living wage of $15 an hour adjusted for inflation, affordable housing, environmental justice, and equity in education. And I would love for all of you to come volunteer with our campaign and join us in working to make the 31st and the Commonwealth more inclusive and equitable for all of our residents, and ensuring that every Virginian has a voice in the legislative process.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So we have some questions prepared. We'll start out. So whether it's work experience as a project manager or life experience as a parent, how do you think that your lived experiences will prepare you for this delegate role?
Well, as a project manager, it's been really important throughout my career to focus not just on the minutia of how we're going to get things done, but also the big picture and how everything's interconnected. So a lot of the issues that I just mentioned: environmental justice, equity in education, a living wage, affordable housing, these are all issues of justice that we always look at as though they're siloed and we can attack one at a time, but really they're all interconnected and need to be addressed on a macro level. So, my project management experience certainly teaches me to, take a look at the big picture and break it down into individual tasks. But in order to do that, we collectively need to figure out what our end goal is, like what exactly it is we are trying to achieve in the end, and then try to figure out the steps to get us to that goal. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And so you said that the you can't really segment them into silos, but is there a issue in particular that's most pressing for the members of your district in particular?
I mean, throughout my conversations throughout the district, the same issues keep coming up. Affordable health care. I just spoke with a woman earlier today who her son was just diagnosed with a neurological disease, and his life-saving medication costs half of their annual salary. So her husband had to, get a second job to help pay for this medication. And now she is essentially a single parent raising this child by herself while her husband is working, 70 hours a week. So I just think it's really important that we are addressing the needs of our community, affordable healthcare, affordable housing, paid sick and family leave, paid childcare, universal pre-K for 3 and 4 year olds, to try to just get everyone on the same level playing field and give everyone the same chance of success here in Virginia.
Thank you. So as an organization, the DYC, one of our main goals is to emphasize youth involvement in politics and getting them activated at a young age. So what advice do you have for young activists who want to help out their community by mobilizing politically?
So throughout my campaign, a lot of the younger folks that I'm speaking with in their late teens, early 20s are really, really socially active. They're fighting for criminal justice, they're fighting for environmental reforms, clean energy, but they really don't feel like anybody down in Richmond or anybody that's a politician in general speaks for them or has any of their interests really at heart. So it's my goal to try to do outreach to the youth and try to have them understand that I think that social activism is wonderful and obviously, helps achieve our goals. But in order to really get to where I think, we all want to be in the end, a lot of that needs to be addressed in the legislature and on the policy level. And I completely understand why, a lot of younger adults feel completely disenfranchised by the political process. All you see on TV is the far left and the far right bickering, and it looks like nothing gets done in government. But as far as I can see, if we start engaging all of these different segments of the population and get them excited about a particular candidate, or, if you're 18 and you can run for office yourself. But I think it's important to get people representing us that truly do have our same values and are going to really fight for the things that are important to us.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next couple of questions are going to be more about specific aspects of your platform. So what is your stance on paid internships?
Paid internships?
Mm-hmm.
In what regard?
Tura?
In general, what is your stance on paid internships, and will you commit to paying interns in the long run?
That is something that I have to discuss with my campaign manager. I don't know that we have thought about bringing in paid interns on. I know that we've, discussed engaging members of the community to want to come volunteer with us. But I don't know. I guess we'd have to take a look at our budget to see if that's something that would work with what we are working with.
Okay. And then moving on to another issue that's really important for the youth in particular. What's your stance on climate change and specifically the Green New Deal, if you'd like to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I obviously believe in climate change. I think it's real. I think it's influenced by man. I certainly think that the goal of zero carbon emissions by 2035 is a great goal. I know local groups here are working to get an all-electric bus fleet for our schools. I think we need an all-electric bus fleet for our schools and for all of our public transportation. I think that we should definitely be transitioning to renewable energy sources, by 2035, that any new public buildings that are built, particularly government buildings, include, energy efficiency, things incorporated into them. And I think we should definitely be phasing out, the use of fossil fuels. I did have a discussion with some of the unions today, so I will say that I don't want anyone to, end up jobless as a result of the transition to renewable energy sources. So I would like to see, training programs set up for those currently in the fossil fuel industry so that, free of charge, to them, so that they can transition their skills from, the current fossil fuel industry into the renewable energy industry. It's really an inevitability that we're going to be transitioning to renewables eventually. And I think that we just have to make sure that we are preserving the high paying jobs that are in the fossil fuel industry throughout the transition.
Yeah, a lot of people, they only take into account the green part of the New Deal, but the New Deal is, a lot of important jobs that are coming with that program too. But so regarding housing, what will you do to address the housing crisis in Virginia, policy-wise?
So I would like to look to, other states that have shown success in similar areas in the area of housing. I come from New York. One of my first jobs out of college was working for a nonprofit that helped low and median income families into affordable housing. The company itself built buildings that they rented out and managed, and they also teamed with developers of luxury buildings who, in exchange for tax credits, would reserve 20% of their units as affordable, while the other 80% went for market value. So there were some, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments that went for $5,000 a month, and our low and medium income families were paying, $500 or $600 a month. So it really gave a lot of families, mostly, families of color, mostly immigrant families, who may have been living 2, 3, 4 families to a small apartment in New York, the opportunity to get their family out of that living situation, get their kids into a better school, give their children an opportunity to, be in a quiet apartment and focus on doing their homework and just have the opportunity for success in life. And while, that program was done through housing lottery, I don't know that that's, a solution for all of Virginia. Certainly, it's a lot more densely populated in New York, and that kind of solution might work for the more densely populated areas in Virginia. But we definitely need to, be making policy that ensures that for every new community that's built, that the developer, sets aside 10, 15, 20% of those homes as affordable, because, families need to be able to afford to live near where they work. That cuts down on carbon emissions. It cuts down on traffic in the area. When people can, live close by to where they work. So the affordable housing crisis really touches on a lot of different areas.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely like to see, some more grants for homeowners as well, because it's not just about, renters trying to find affordable apartments. People need to be able to, some people want to live in a single family home or a townhome, and we should have grants available for them as well.
Great. So last policy specific question. What is your stance on disabilities issues, specifically inclusiveness and accessibility?
I mean, when I say that I'm building a campaign on inclusion and equity, I'm not just talking about people of different races, faiths, sexual orientations, gender identities. I'm also talking about people with different abilities. And I know that the Americans with Disabilities Act isn't always so strongly adhered to. And I think that we have to make sure that in all of our policies that we are including the disability community and getting their input, just to make sure that, just as we would include any other community of people that might be a stakeholder in a policy we're implementing, we really need to make sure that every single group of people has a seat at the table, because, I may be able to identify a problem and think I've come up with the best solution, but unless I'm including everyone who's affected by that solution, I don't have everyone else's lived experience. So I don't necessarily know how something is going to impact a community that I'm not as familiar with. So it's really, really important that we have people from all those different groups have a seat at the table to have input into how the policies will affect them directly.
That's a good point. Thank you. And actually, one more policy question. Sorry. What is your stance on the death penalty?
I'm glad that we abolished it. I wish that we would abolish it nationwide. I think that until there's any way to know with 100% certainty that someone is guilty, I think that it has been proven time and time again that far too many innocent people are being murdered at the hands of the state. So
Yeah.
I think that it should be abolished nationwide.
Yeah. All right. So I have two more questions. Perhaps Tura will have some additional ones after. But second to last one is, what are you most proud about from your campaign?
For my campaign,
Mhm.
I'm just really proud of the team that we've built. And I'm proud of the work that we're doing and the outreach that we're doing to voters. I think that we have a great message that really resonates with voters. And I know I've been having some great conversations on the door. I know all my volunteers have as well. And I'm really excited to just continue knocking doors and making those phone calls around the district.
Awesome. And then my last question, sort of an introspective one. So where do you get your joy and inspiration from?
From my family, really. There's oftentimes I'll write some remarks down that I want to say to address a group of people, and I'll ask my husband to look it over and edit it and proofread it, and he always he gets inspired by what I've written, and then his edits inspire me to include other things, and it's just, we have a wonderful partnership, and I'm very, very fortunate. But yeah, he and my two kids are the source of my inspiration for sure.
Wonderful.
So a couple of policy related questions. I noticed on your website, you're all about paid sick and family leave. Can you tell us more about your plan for paid sick and family leave in Virginia?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fantastic that the General Assembly passed paid sick leave last session for home health workers, but I think that that needs to be expanded to everyone working in the Commonwealth, and paid family leave as well. I think that, this was an issue that existed long before the pandemic, but it was only highlighted by the issues of the pandemic. No one should be going to work sick. I mean, I know particularly hourly workers that may work with the public that are in contact with many people a day. I know if I'm going to a restaurant, even just to go pick up my food, I don't want the person that was handling my food to be sick and to be forced to go to work because they have to choose between getting a paycheck and being able to feed their families or being able to care for their own health. And likewise, if they have a sick child or a child with special needs, they need to go to an IEP meeting, they have an ailing parent or grandparent, they should be able to take the time they need to support their loved one, and to take on that caregiver role. It's a lot of responsibility, and we need to be respecting our workers, no matter what vocation they're in. So we really do need paid sick and family leave across the board for everyone working in the Commonwealth.
Before I ask the next policy question, we have more of a fun question for you.
Okay.
When not campaigning, what is your favorite TV show or movie to binge watch?
Oh my goodness, I haven't watched TV in forever. I'm just between my day job and being a parent and campaigning. I don't have much free time, but I do like all of the Law and Orders. So I'll shuffle between Criminal Intent and SVU and the original Law and Order.
That's amazing. Law and Order rocks. So the next question we have before you is it's a very big issue in Virginia, especially rural Virginia. Tell us about your plan to expand broadband in Virginia.
Yeah, broadband is a huge issue. I've read one too many articles about kids doing their homework from McDonald's parking lot because that was the only place they could find Wi-Fi. First, broadband needs to be classified as a utility on a federal level. And until that happens, we really need to do all that we can to kind of fill that gap for our rural Virginians. I know that, UPS and FedEx, they don't deliver out to the most remote locations in Virginia. They team up with the post office, and the post office provides that last mile delivery. And I think that we need to have a similar partnership when it comes to high-speed internet for any of those, smaller telecom companies that won't come out far enough. We need to provide incentives for them to partner with some of the larger companies to bring internet. In an increasingly digital world, you can't survive without internet access. Kids are going to school online. No, kids should not be missing school just because they don't have access to the internet.
Right. And then next question we have is regarding education. Can you tell us more about your plan for education if elected? And also, as our next delegate, what is your plan what would be your plan to safely reopen schools? As I know that's a hot issue right now where a lot of families are split about going back to school and some are kind of wary about going back to school. So what would be your plan to safely reopen schools?
So first, with regard to education, I want to make sure that our teachers, admin, support staff, cafeteria staff, bus drivers are all being supported. I know that, on the state level, we just passed a 5% pay increase for teachers, but ultimately it's really up to the localities and the counties if they have money in the budget to implement those pay increases. So I really want to make sure as delegate that I'm working with our local school boards and our local boards of county supervisors to ensure that, when something is passed, and not just the pay raise, but just anything in general, when anything's passed on the state level, that it really can realistically be implemented on the local level and benefit the people that it's intended to benefit. I want to take a really hard look at our curriculum. I know that there's been a lot brought to light about, what is in our children's textbooks, our history textbooks in particular. And I want to make sure that we are giving our kids an historically accurate representation of our history, even though it may not be pretty. Because, it doesn't serve any of us any good to be lying to our kids. It only serves to, I don't want to use the word brainwash, but give them an inaccurate depiction of history. And our kids should be learning how to think critically based on, an accurate depiction of events. So I would love to work, with our education department on just revising and revamping our entire curriculum, but particularly the history. As far as safely reopening schools, I think that until we can ensure that all of our teachers are vaccinated, that any adult that's going to be in the building is vaccinated, and as many kids as want to be on site are vaccinated as possible, I don't think it's realistic to expect anyone to be on site. I don't think, I think that our teachers have done an amazing job this year of flipping on a dime. They're given a new directive, and within a day or two, they have revamped their entire lesson plan. And I mean, I went a few months ago to read to a 5th grade class. And this teacher had a class of kids online. She had a class of kids in front of her that, it was my understanding, were signing in to computers in the room to get on the Zoom, and just flawlessly talking to the kids in person, talking to the kids online, but she's doing the work of 2 people. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to admin a large Zoom room during a meeting, but I mean, just adminning, it's hard to also facilitate the meeting itself. So, I mean, I give all the props to our teachers, and we just really have to, I mean, why would we want to risk them, their health and safety, the health and safety of their family members? It's just, I understand the urgency to get our kids back in school and to get that social aspect back, but it's really not worth anyone's health and safety.
All right, so 2 more policy related questions and we'll close. So this is a hot button issue. I know you saw Governor Northam sign that bill today. But what is your stance on legalization of marijuana? I'm
all for it. I think that as long as alcohol is legalized, certainly marijuana should be as well. I'm interested to see in what the path going forward is. If there are any plans for the opening of any dispensaries or how it's going to be taxed. but I am 100% for the legalization of marijuana.
Great. Last policy question, then we'll close. Can you tell us more about your healthcare plan, as that's an issue that's so many Americans are dealing with right now, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. So can you tell us more about your plan for healthcare, more so expanding healthcare access to the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to expand Medicaid. There are far too many people that, don't make enough to purchase a private policy, or even their employer policy is too much in relation to their salary, but yet make too much to qualify for Medicaid. So we just have to make sure that we're taking care of our Virginians. I would eventually love to see us transfer to, a single payer universal healthcare system. I think that there needs to be a plan in place for a transition. I think it's a hard sell for a lot of people that think that their employer, that their one out of three options of an employer plan is choice. And it's going to take some getting used to that, we have to have a public option first and kind of show proof of concept to people who aren't, and who don't buy that it's going to work. But I would like to, over the next 5, 6, 7 years, start transitioning to a single payer system.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kara, for joining us. We really enjoyed this conversation. And reminder to all the Virginia voters, the election is in June. If you're a Virginia voter, you can vote in the Democratic primary. And Kara, we wish you the best of luck on your campaign, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. Please check out my website at karapitek.com, and I'd love to have you all come volunteer with us.